Hi everybody, my name is Nate Stewart. I'm a mortgage loan officer here in Puerto Rico, and in today's video I'm going to discuss what you need to know if you're married and you want to purchase property on your own in Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico is what's called a community property territory, and like some others areas in the union. And so this video is all about what you need to know, what steps you need to go through in the event that you want to purchase property on your own. All right, so let's jump in. As I mentioned at the top, Puerto Rico is a community property territory, right? And so there's other places, like Arizona, Nevada. There's other states and territories like Guam is also community property, I believe. And so that means that by default, if you're legally married and you're coming to purchase property, the default setting and the default assumption legally is that your spouse will have 50% ownership. They would be expected to appear on the mortgage, so they'd have that responsibility, and they'll be expected to appear on the deed afterwards, right? So that they have ownership stake as well. That's the default mode, right, for basically any community property state, including Puerto Rico. To get around that, there can be many situations where somebody is legally married, but they want to purchase property on their own. Could be lots of different reasons. And so to accomplish that can be possible. But if you're legally married, what you need to do is what's called a postnuptial agreement. Also would work if you have the prenuptial agreement. Sometimes you hear about folks doing that before they're married. They split up their assets. They decide who's going to have ownership of what. That I guess could be one way. But let's say that you're already married and you want to purchase something in Puerto Rico on your own. Then you're going to need what's called a postnuptial agreement, meaning that you're already married, but you essentially, what that looks like is that you would meet with an attorney here in Puerto Rico, right? Because in Puerto Rico, this would have to be notarized, and the only notaries in Puerto Rico are attorneys. Okay, so you would need to go to an attorney that could help you with a postnuptial agreement. In Spanish, it's called capitulaciones. And so you would go and you'd meet with them, and basically the only thing that you need to decide is not all of your assets and how they need to be split. It's only for the subject property that you're purchasing. Right, and so you would, the attorney would help you draft up the agreement, saying that the future property after closing is only going to be in this one spouse's name and only on, only their responsibility. And so once everybody signs it, likely there'd be a couple $100 fee to the attorney for their time, and then for also filing that paperwork after the closing. And then, basically once you've done that and you have the postnuptial agreement in place, then you'd be able to purchase that property with only one person on the mortgage and only one person on the deed, right? So that can definitely be achieved. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated. Let's say that you're not already in Puerto Rico. Let's say that you're out in the mainland U.S. and you want to get this done. Well, then it can be achieved that way too, but you're going to need to do that postnuptial agreement and get it notarized. First of all, it's going to be physical documents. It's not like something that I've seen it where the attorney can draft up the documentation, email it to the person who's outside of Puerto Rico. They print it out, take it to a notary public in their state, get it notarized there, and you have to make sure that notary is has you need to get their notary, I forget what it's called, decree number or whatever, so that we can find them in the public notary system, and then basically send those documents back to Puerto Rico, back to the same attorney, who will then do some other officialization of those documents. I think it's called protocolization, and then they can once the purchase happens, then you can be the only one person making that purchase. So there's a bunch of steps, like if they're not physically in Puerto Rico, and how to get it notarized, because there's a bunch of complexities of those things. But anyway, it can be done. It can be achieved that way. All right, let's also discuss a different scenario where, let's say that somebody, they were legally married and then they got separated. They started the divorce proceedings, but then they didn't finish the divorce proceedings. So technically, they're still legally married. They don't have a divorce decree that they can provide to the underwriters and provide to whoever needs to see it during the transaction, during the underwriting period. Well, that could potentially be an issue, right? And so if you know that you're still legally married and that the divorce hasn't been completed, some people, it seems, are tempted to lie on their mortgage application, say, nope, I'm unmarried, or just say separated or whatever, which, that definitely don't lie on a mortgage application for lots of reasons. One, it's illegal. But two, underwriters have access to many databases where they're going to find that information out, right? So for one, I mean, if you were married and you filed as a married person for your taxes, that's going to pop up. Another is that if you were married and like you just didn't finish the divorce decree, that means that there's no divorce decree in the public record, and so you're still going to be you're still going to be labeled as married, and they're going to ask about it because they're going to find that and they're going to ask about it. And so, you know, it's happened where I've had clients where 30 years ago they started getting divorced, just didn't complete the process. Now they come here with their new partner and they want to make the purchase. And if the divorce wasn't done, now they either have to go finish their divorce that they started 30 years ago, or go back to that person and have them do the postnuptial agreement, which, as I said, can be done via mail, but it's going to be a bunch of steps. You're going to have to physically see them, go get something notarized, get their signature, whatever, and then you have to send it back and get it done in Puerto Rico as well. And so, like, those steps could that would be very uncomfortable. So something to keep in mind if you know that you're legally married and you're wanting to purchase with only one person on the mortgage and on the deed moving forward. Last thing I'll mention about this that can be important is that Puerto Rico is what's called a wet sign territory only, meaning that there's not a way to do a closing. Well, there is, but there's not an easy way to do a closing at a distance, right? There's no electronic signature types of closing. That's not a thing here. The only way to do a closing at a distance is to do the same type thing where you leave a power of attorney in Puerto Rico, and then you can go wherever else you want to be, and then your designee, the person you designate, would be the one that gets to sign those papers. And so, you know, that can play into this too. If, you know, you are trying to figure out your travel arrangements and how to come to Puerto Rico to do, you know, the postnuptial agreement, because typically people will do that when they're physically on the island. It's a lot easier to do it that way than to mail these documents back and forth, because, you know, the notary requirements and all that stuff. And so it can get a little complicated, as you can tell. So if you have questions, if you want to know how you can purchase a property on your own if you're legally married, reach out to me. Happy to help with any questions that you've got. And you know some good attorneys here we do this routinely, and so we know how to get it done. So feel free. My contact details will be in the description below. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and I will see you next time.